We've all had those moments when life seems so predictable, almost boring, and you start thinking you figured it all
Out.
For years, I kept thinking that my relationship with my son Henry was set in stone. We were close, sure, but you know how it is. After a certain age, you just settle into a rhythm. We'd have our chats, our dinners, and everything felt pretty normal. But that trip, the one I thought would be just another weekend getaway, turned out to be the moment that changed everything. I'll admit, I wasn't excited about it at first. My friends had been raving about family trips for ages. It's a chance to reconnect, they'd say. I was skeptical. My husband, God bless him, had passed away a few years ago, and I hadn't traveled much since then. The idea of spending time with Henry, now in his 30s, felt more like a routine than a rejuvenating escape. He was a good son, but he was also a man with his own life. It had been a while since we had spent time together like we did when he was younger. But when Henry suggested we go on a little trip to the mountains, I couldn't resist. "It'll be good for you, Mom," he said, his voice soft with that caring tone only he had. And there it was,
The part
of me that always put others first, the part that never wanted to disappoint, agreed before I could even think it through. So we packed our bags.
The
Weekend trip was to a cabin in the mountains, just the two of us.
It was
The kind of place you could lose yourself in, far enough away from the noise of everyday life, but close enough to remind you of what you'd left behind. The cabin was rustic but charming, tucked into the side of a mountain with large windows that gave a stunning view of the valley below. When we arrived, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the landscape. The crisp air felt refreshing as we stepped out of the car. Henry had taken care of the details, booking the cabin, making sure we had everything we needed. I was grateful for his thoughtfulness. He always seemed to know what I needed before I did. We unpacked our bags and settled in. The silence of the mountains was soothing, but I couldn't help but feel a little awkward. It had been so long since it was just Henry and me, with no distractions, no daily routine, just time to talk or sit in the quiet together. I didn't know what to expect. That night we ate dinner by the fire. The warmth of the flames and the scent of the wood burning filled the room.
we
Talked about everything and nothing. Family, life, old memories. Henry asked about my favorite trips I had taken with
his father before he passed.
I told him about our honeymoon in Paris, how we had wandered through the streets, laughing about silly things, feeling young and carefree. Henry listened attentively, nodding as I spoke, and for a moment it felt like we were back in those days when he was little, sitting around the table with the three of us. But then, in the quiet after dinner, something shifted. Henry cleared his throat, a small nervous
Sound.
I looked up from my cup of tea, raising an eyebrow. "You know, Mom, there's something I've been wanting to tell you," he said, his voice a little hesitant. I set my cup down, my curiosity
Peaked.
I'd heard that tone before. "What's on your mind, Henry?" He shifted in his chair, his fingers tapping the side of his mug, as if gathering his thoughts. "It's about us, our relationship, I mean." I frowned, slightly unsure of where this was
Going.
"What do you mean?"
Henry hesitated.
Again, before speaking.
I've been
"Thinking a lot about how we've been, you know, since Dad passed. How things kind of settled into a routine. I think we both got comfortable with that, but I don't want us to miss out on the chance to really reconnect.
I've noticed that.
We don't really talk about the deeper things, about what's really going on in our lives. And I think we should. I think we need to." I was taken aback. My son had always been someone I could rely on, but I never realized he had been carrying this feeling.
His
Words hung in the air, and for a moment, I didn't know what to say. I looked at him, my eyes softening. There was something vulnerable in his expression, something I hadn't seen in a long time. I felt a rush of emotion. Love, regret, and a little sadness.
I
Didn't realize you felt that way. I
said quietly.
I'm sorry, Henry. I know. I've been caught up in my own grief.
Didn't mean to distance myself from you.
Henry smiled a little more at
ease now.
It's not about blame, Mom. We just haven't talked like we used to. I miss
that.
I smiled back, feeling a wave of warmth spread through me.
He was right.
We hadn't really talked about things that mattered in a long time.
Our
conversations had become more about the
mundane, about the day-to-day.
We'd both been trying to fill the empty spaces left by his father in different ways, but we hadn't truly connected in a long time. And in that moment sitting by the fire, I realized that this trip wasn't just a family getaway. It was a chance to rediscover something precious, something I hadn't even realized I had lost. As the night went on, we talked about all the things we hadn't said. We laughed, we cried, and we shared the things that had been buried deep inside us. There was something healing about it, something that made me feel lighter, as though a weight I hadn't even known I was carrying had finally been lifted. I thought this trip was just going to be a simple family getaway, but it turned into something far more meaningful. It was the beginning of something new, something I hadn't expected, but desperately needed. As the days passed, in the cabin Henry and I found ourselves settling into a new rhythm. The silence that had once been so heavy between us was now filled with conversations, small talks, deep discussions, and moments of reflection. It was like peeling back layers of a relationship I thought I had known inside out, only to discover there was so much more beneath the surface. The morning started slow, with cups of coffee shared over the breakfast table. Watching the fog roll down the mountainside, we would sit in companionable silence. And then, without fail, Henry would ask me a question that made me pause and think about life, about memories, about my own fears and hopes. Mom, he said, one morning, his voice calm but serious. What's something you've always wanted to do but never did? I had to think for a moment. At 57, I felt like I'd done most of what I'd set out to do. Travel, raise a family, build a life. But when I really dug deep, I realized there was still a part of me that had dreams I'd tucked away. I always wanted to take a painting class, I said finally, the words feeling strange as they left my mouth. But I never got around to it. Henry raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Why not? Well, I hesitated. Life just got in the
way. There was always something else to focus on.
Work, family, the house. I never felt like I had time for things just for me. That's sad, he said softly. You should have done it. His words hit me harder than I expected. The sadness in his voice wasn't just about my unfulfilled dream. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't really seen before. The idea that my son, a grown man now, still saw me in a way that made him want me to be more than just a mother, but a person with dreams and passions of her own. I smiled at him, though there was a bit of a lump in my throat. Maybe it's not too late, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure if I believed it. We spent the day exploring the area, walking through the woods near the
cabin.
The crisp autumn air smelled like pine and earth, and the golden light of the afternoon made the trees look as though they were on fire. It was the kind of peaceful day that made you forget about the world beyond the mountains, the worries and stresses that followed you everywhere else. But for Henry and me, it was the kind of day that allowed us to be just two people, a mother and son, rediscovering each other. By evening, we were sitting on the porch, the sun just tipping below the horizon. Henry had brought out a bottle of wine, and we sipped it slowly, savoring the moment. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt so calm, so at peace with my own thoughts and feelings. You know, Henry began breaking the silence. I've been thinking a lot about what you said last night about how we haven't really talked like this in a
while.
I turned toward him, intrigued. What about it? I think he paused, gathering his words. I think we've both been so focused on the past, on what we've lost, that we forgot about what's still here, what's still possible.
His
words struck me again like a gentle wake-up call. He was right. We'd spent so much time grieving, so much time looking back that we had forgotten to look forward. The idea of moving on, of embracing the future, had felt almost impossible at times. But now, sitting here on the porch with my son, I realized something. Maybe it wasn't just about mourning what was
gone.
Maybe it was about embracing the opportunities that still lay ahead. I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs. You're right, Henry. I've been so caught up in what's been lost that I haven't really allowed myself to think about what's still possible. Maybe it's time for me to start thinking about the future.